The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business, from $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Hey, welcome to the #1 Real Estate Podcast Network and the Icons of Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Kat Timpson, and today my guest is Shawn Getty. He's an agent with eXp Realty in Calgary, Canada. Shawn is a rising star in the industry, having sold nearly 186 solo homes in just the first half of his third year in business. Now he runs a team which he grew from 4 to 56 agents in just 8 months, and he's selling over 400 homes this year alone. Shawn is also a mentor, a leader, known for building a strong and supportive agent network. And just last month, Shawn was a keynote speaker at his brokerage's national conference in Miami. Welcome, Shawn. I'm so happy to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here.
Cool. Well, I always like to start with people's real estate story, your origin story. How'd you get into this crazy business?
Yeah. Oh, this could take our whole time.
All right, we'll take a shortened version of how you.
We'll take the Coles Notes version. Yeah. So, super long story short. My whole life actually fell apart, and it was my own fault. But I ended up losing my marriage, my career, and my health all in a 30-day span.
Oh.
So it was pretty tough. Yeah. And so I ended up getting my divorce papers, my termination, and then I broke my arm in 9 places, all within a 30-day span. And so I couldn't work out, I couldn't play hockey, I couldn't do any of this stuff, to blow some steam and everything.
I just say you as a Canadian couldn't play hockey? That
was a big problem.
Resonate with everybody who doesn't know, but a Canadian who can't play hockey when they want to. I get it. That's the real.
It is a problem. Literally, my shirt says A list.
Totally get it.
Yeah, which is my friend's company, so a little plug for him.
Nice.
But my whole life just fell apart completely. And I ended up spending all my money and racking up a whole bunch of debt. So I had well over $100,000 worth of debt, and took basically a year off to just become a loser. And that's when I thought it'd be a great idea. I thought it'd be a great idea to get into real estate. So when I came in, the only thing that I owned was literally debt and depression. It was not two very good assets. And I remember even when I was taking the course, it got so bad at one point, I was selling my furniture for food. Like that's what I was. Yeah. And I was taking the course, and it took me 11 months to get through the first chapter, if you can imagine. So a long time to get through one chapter, because I kept looking at the book and being like, what's the point? I can't even afford the test. The test was like $150. I'm like, I don't even have that money to do the test, let alone the second part of the course or the fees or anything. So one day I was just feeling bad for myself, and I was like, you know what? I go like this isn't how it has to be. And back then I was atheist. My life has changed since then, but I'm like, if I put the right energy out into the universe will take care of me. I now know that was God. But I said, I'm just going to study, and somehow, some way, the money's going to show up for what I need. So I did a chapter and a half that day. So you can imagine I did more in one day than I did in almost a year.
Yeah.
And the next day, like the very next day, my uncle calls me, and me and my uncle, like we don't have a bad relationship, but we don't talk. It's been maybe 20 years since we had a conversation. And like we don't even say happy birthday or nothing, because he lived in a different country and all this kind of stuff. It just was never a thing. Calls me to the blue, and we're talking, and he goes, hey, I was talking to your mom, and she said you're trying to get into real estate. I'm like, yeah. Right? It's weird for you to call with this question, right?
Yeah, right.
And he goes, do you need anything? And at the time I did. I needed money. So I just said it. I'm like, yeah, actually. He's like, oh, what do you need? I'm like, money. Right? He's like, oh, is that all? And I'm like, I haven't eaten in 2 days. I'm like, yeah, that's all I need. And he goes, no problem. Here's my credit card. And anything real estate related you need, just put it on there. I'm like, are you sure? I go, like, this shit's not cheap. And so he put my test on, my course, my fees, everything he put on there. And without that phone call, I would have never got into real estate. So I got in, and he's a realtor as well. He happened to be at EXP, and I'm not going to get brokerage related, but I am just going to touch this on a second because it was such a horrible place to be when I joined.
Hmm.
There was only 50 agents in our province, which is like a state. So there's only 50 agents in a state, and I got assigned a mentor. There was only one available to me. There was no choices. This was the only one.
Wow.
And yeah, there's just the 50 agents. They're like, here, this is the mentor that we have, right? And I'll shorten this up, and this will be the end of the origin story. But so we sat down, and back then the structure was you had to pay them 20% of your first three deals for their
Okay.
mentorship. And I'm like, okay, listen, I'm broke. Like, I have no money. We're at breakfast. And I'm like, I cannot pay for this breakfast. Like, you're paying, or I'm not ordering. I have no money. And they're like, yeah, okay, no problem. And then like I said, okay, I need to sell a house today, like right now. So if you could just tell me what to do, I'm gonna get up out of this chair and I'm gonna go do it because I have to sell a house today. And she's like, oh, okay, no problem. Well, the best thing that you can do is a pumpkin drive. I started in March, so you can
Okay.
imagine this. And I'm like, a
Huh?
pumpkin drive, right? And she's like, yeah, you can get to know the community and you're blah blah blah. And I'm like, in October, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I said today. And I go, not only that, where do you want me to get these pumpkins? Like, I told you I'm broke. I'm not hiding this,
Yeah,
right?
with my good looks.
Yeah. I'm like, you want me to do steal them or grow them? Like, what am I gonna, right? I go, okay, stupid idea. What's the next thing that I need to do to get deals today? And she's like, oh, well, you can just hang out at coffee shops of communities where you want to work and just talk to people coming and going. I'm like, I can't loiter I don't have money for a coffee. I can't afford a coffee. And I'm just gonna sit here and just ask people coming and going if they're like no, okay, you know what? I lied. I'm not gonna do whatever you say. You don't need the third thing. Thank you so much for breakfast. I'm leaving. And I left. And then I went to the broker and I'm like, listen, like I'm not doing the mentor thing. And he's like, well, you have to, you have no choice. This is the structure and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, you got a choice. He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I quit. I go, like, I'm not fucking doing this. I go, I'll go to another brokerage that actually has training. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, okay, I'll tell you what, stay. Because again, like they only had 50 agents, so they're trying to grow, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, stay, but you're on your own. Like it's whatever. You have the EXP world, but that's it. I go, good. Like I'd rather be on my own. So then I logged into EXP World. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but it's like a Sims video game, and you can go to like different rooms for training and stuff.
Yeah.
So I log into this thing, and there's a front desk person, and I'm like, hey, I'm brand new. I heard there's lots of training here. Where do I go to sell a house? And the front desk person's like, oh, good, you're brand new, so exciting. I'm like, yeah, great. Just show me where the training is, please. Right? Like I've got no time for any of this.
Great.
I don't,
Great.
I don't
Cut to
care
the
how your day
chase.
is. Yeah, like I don't care. Like just show me, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, if you're new, you got to take the boats for a ride. What are you talking about?
The
She goes,
the boats for a ride.
because it's a Sims thing and it's on an island, right? Like it's an
Okay.
online campus. She's
Yeah.
like, look over there, there's boats. I'm like,
Eh?
what? So now I log off. I'm like, okay, done. I don't want that either. So like since then, EXP's changed quite a bit. Now there is a lot of good trade. Like it's totally different from when I started. But you got to remember, it's a virtual brokerage. So I've got no mentor. I've got no place to go to. And the EXP world, I'm out.
Wow.
So I literally just Googled, how do I sell a house today? And that's how I started. So I literally jumped to Google. I go, how do I sell a house today? Search. And then I saw all the things that you're supposed to do, right? So like door knocking, cold calls, warm calls, sphere, blah, blah, blah. But this is 2019, right? So it wasn't like what it is today, where there's like an abundance of information everywhere.
Sure.
TikTok wasn't even a thing yet. Like it wasn't even invented. It
Right.
was still
Infant.
no, it was called the
Oh,
song app.
uh, uh,
Remember?
yes, musically or something.
Yeah, yeah, like it wasn't even TikTok at this time, you
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? So, yeah, so I started Googling it and all I saw was a bunch of very aggressive American type stuff. Whereas like, oh, if you got a listing, like send out the pre-listing package so that they've already got all the stuff and you just go there and sign it, like that type of
Yeah.
stuff, right? Or like, when you knock on the door, assume you've got their listing. I'm like, they don't even know I'm not, what are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
So I saw the activities, but I didn't like anything that I saw, but I just, now I know what I'm supposed to do. So I remember I went out literally that day. I'm like, okay, door knocking's a thing. So I'm like, right, I knocked on a door and oddly enough, the person answered. They're like, hello. I'm like, hello. They're like, can I help you? I'm like, would you like to sell your house? That was the first door I knocked. I had
And did you
no
hit it
clue.
on the first try?
Absolutely not. No. Right.
That would have
But
been a really good story, but also it would have been almost miraculous. So thank you for that.
yeah. Yeah, but I did get my first listing my first week.
Excellent.
I got it from a warm call. Called the guy, just checked in. How you doing? How's life? How's whatever? And he's like, "What's new with you?" I said, "Real estate." He goes, "Oh, crazy! I have a house for you to sell." I'm like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Whose?" He goes, "Mine." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He
Wow.
goes, "Yeah, put it up right now." I'm like, "Okay, I can sell it." He's like, "Sure, come by and take it, whatever." So I did, and it was $1.35 million dollars. And back then, yeah, so our average sale back then was around 400. So you can imagine it's almost 4x
Yeah.
the average sale in the market, right? And I didn't know if I was a designated brokerage or not. I didn't go for call, like I didn't know anything. So I went there and I listed it, and we took the photos and measurements. You got to remember, I'm broke, no money. I get the invoice for the photos, and I sent it to him, and I go, "Hey, you got to pay this." And the seller's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, you got to pay it so we can get the pictures. They won't give it to us until it's paid." He goes, "Don't you pay that?" I go, "No, you're selling your house. You got to pay." I had no money. I had no choice, right? Like I had no money to pay it. Somebody had to pay. So anyway, so he paid for the photos and measurements, but then he fired me like 3 weeks later because
Aw.
again, I had no clue what I was doing, right? So, anyways, that's the short version of like an hour long origin story.
But obviously you've turned it around. Obviously you've made the most of it and then started going great gangbusters. You want to tell us again? You gave me some numbers of the first few years. What were they?
44 deals my first year, 103 my second year, 186 my third year, and then started really kind of trying to go into teams. So I dropped down to about 100. And then this year will be our first year with the team. We should do a little over 400 deals, is where we should end up with now.
That's amazing. So, Sean, like, what do you think is the thing? I know you were hungry and I know you were motivated, but what do you really think um, made it click for you and what works the best for you?
I know exactly what it was. So reps equal results. That's what it is.
Mm.
If you want bigger results, you just got to do more reps. So what happened is, again, during my first year, this was before I sold my first house. I put up 3 listings at this time, been fired from all 3. And yeah, one time, two on the same day. So like two $800,000 listings. One called me in the morning to fire me, and one called me in the afternoon to fire me. So I had a bit of a rough go at the beginning, for sure. So what happened is because my life had fallen apart, and again, this is all my fault, but because my life had fallen apart and I wasn't able to pick myself back up, the depression was getting pretty bad, and I tried to kill myself 2 times that year. Once before the story I'm going to tell you, and then once after.
Okay.
And so what happened is I was putting out open house signs one day, and I was having a particularly bad day, and I was just hoping that somebody would run me over as I was putting out the signs because it was just it wasn't good. Like I wasn't in a good place.
Yeah.
And putting out the open house signs, and I'm like, you know what? Like this isn't me. I'm not a loser, right? This isn't my story. This isn't my life, right? I need to stop feeling sorry for myself. I need to stop making excuses and all this kind of stuff because we always do, right?
Yeah, sure. We explain it.
Yeah. So I said to myself, I mean, okay, I'm going to make myself a deal. I'm going to give it 100% of every single ounce of fiber of energy that I have. I'm going to go all in. And if I'm still not happy and I'm still not moving in the right direction by the end of this year, then I will kill myself. And I went home and I wrote it on my calendar. So December 31st, 2019, your last day on earth was on my calendar.
Wow.
You can
That's some
imagine
deadline. That is some deadline.
it was hard. It was, and like I go back and I relate it to that guru story, like pretty much everyone's heard it, but a guy goes to the guru and he says, "I want to be the greatest." And the guru says, "Okay, if you want to be the greatest, meet me at the beach at 4 a.m." And he goes, "Okay, why are we going to the beach? I want to be the greatest. This has nothing to do with the beach, but okay." So he meets the guru 4 a.m. at the beach, and the guru is already standing on the water, and he says, "Okay, come out to the water." And the guy walks out, and as he walks out, the guru grabs him and dunks his head under the water, and he's drowning him. He's trying to get up and try to take a bath, and the guru is holding his head under the water. And just before he's about to pass out, he picks his head up above the water, and when he's about to take a gasp of breath, he slams his head back under the water, and he's drowning him again and again right before he passes out, up and down and up and down. So now he's about to pass out from no oxygen. The guru picks him up and lets him take a big breath. There. And the guy goes, "What are you doing?" "Ah." And the guru says, "Until you want it as bad as you wanted that air, you will never be the greatest." And what happened is you need to work like your life depended on. I was working like my life depended on it because it truly did.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, if I wasn't moving in the right direction, that was it. So like it was life or death for me. And where I go about reps and results is if you want to get good at anything, it's just reps. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be sports, could be music, could be ballet, could like doesn't matter. But reps equal results. So what happened is I started to put in like truly an unbelievable amount of reps. For example, door knocking. When most people go and knock doors, they're 10 to 25 doors. Most people max out at 50. I was doing 300 a day.
What?
That's exactly right. People, there's no way you did 300. I'm like, you ever work like your life depended on it? Right? Like, could you get to 300? That would take all day. Yep. That's literally exactly what it took. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. all day. Nobody does that. You ever work with
Good
the
for Sean.
deadline in being your life? Right?
Yeah.
So what happened is I was doing everything at that scale because you can't knock doors every day, right?
Yeah.
But I never missed an open house. My social media, again, social media wasn't as big as it is now, but I knew that I need to talk to more people. And I noticed that every time I made a conversation, I only had a very small account, but like 30 people would watch it. I'm like, oh, I just had one story and 30 people saw it. I'm like, that's
Right.
great. That just saved me 29 conversations, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I truly worked like crazy. And it took me 5 months till I got my first deal. And so I did my first deal. And then the next month I did 17. And then it just started rolling from there.
Wow. I think that people watching, maybe if they're starting out, they don't not only realize how much it takes, but also not realizing that it's a numbers game because then work begets work, right? Once you're in it, then luckily for a lot of us, then you have a reputation and then you have referrals and all that good stuff. Is that what happened? Is that how you got to that 17?
No, it's funny. So what happened is, so it was my 6th month, did 17
Okay.
deals, and I thought I made it. I'm like,
Yeah.
sick, 17 deals. This is great, right?
Yeah.
And you got to remember, I have no training whatsoever. So I don't even know what paperwork I need. So like my broker called me after these 17 deals and he's like, what the fuck just happened? Like, what do you mean? He goes, you just screwed up everything. I'm like, what? Because again, we only had 50 agents, so we only had one conveyancer for the whole province, the whole state. So imagine 17 deals come in, all wrong,
Oh
right?
my goodness. You got
Right? I
one
got
person to fix it.
and one person to do it
Yeah.
all. So I just screwed up everything, right? So, anyways, I thought I'm like, oh, crazy, 17 deals. This is going to be great. So I was expecting repeat referral and stuff like that. Not repeat in a month, but obviously like business to come.
Sure.
So I only handle those deals. And again, I don't know what I'm doing. So it takes a lot of effort to finish those deals. And at the time, like I said, I was broke. So I was actually working as a bouncer at nighttime because my accounts were so far overdrawn. I couldn't get any money in there. So I had to work a cash job. So my shift at bouncing started around 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and it would go until about 3 a.m. every day. So I'd work from 8:30 to 3 standing outside checking IDs because that was my job as a bouncer. And
Yeah,
it
sure.
got to like minus 40 in Canada, right? So
Right.
standing outside in the cold, and then from 3, I would get home till about 4 or 4:30, I would do paperwork. And then I would sleep till 7, and then I'd wake up and I would go to the gym and I would start my day working 9 till 8 or 9 till 9 real estate. So I literally was working 20 to 22 hours a day, like literally for a year straight.
Amazing.
But anyways, to answer your question, so 17 deals, and then I thought they were all going to start pouring in.
Sure.
I did one deal the next month because I stopped prospecting. So that's when I understood that it's a seesaw. So what happens is when you have no customers, you have to do a lot of prospecting. When you do a lot of prospecting, then your timetable goes like this. And now you've got a lot of customers, but you've got a lot of time for prospecting. So I learned how to keep this in the middle was
Yeah.
minimum mandatory 2 hours of prospecting a day, no matter what. Nothing ever took precedent between those 2 hours of prospecting of whatever it is that it needed to be.
Yeah.
Could have been social media, could have been cold calls, warm calls,
Sure.
uh,
Sure.
door knocking. But if you keep that minimum 2 hours a day, you'll keep the deal flow going. So, did I answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's super helpful. I think a lot of people don't realize that once you get going, they
Yeah,
think it's all going to just happen. And then if you don't put anything in the pipeline, nothing's going to come of it. But
yeah,
so here you are, you've finally gotten to the point where you kind of know how to fill out paperwork. You kind of know what you're doing. You're still prospecting. Somewhere along the lines, it obviously burst forth. Do you remember when that was?
Uh, Not an exact time, but like I think it just I had to I just continually got slapped with things, right? Like so like the 17 deals and then I got slapped with the paperwork.
Sure.
And we were moving into February of the next year. And I'm like, okay, I need to start really ramping up here. So imagine this is pre-COVID because COVID was basically March 2020.
Yep.
So in February of 2020, I put up 25 listings. So I had one listing and then I went to 25 in the month of February. And
Epic.
again, yeah, it was again mostly door knocking and social media was getting me those ones. And then March 2020 happens. And back then in Calgary, the worst market you could possibly imagine. So in 2019, the year that I started, take a wild guess what the days on market was.
If it was really, really poor, it was easily over a month, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, you're not even in the conversation.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're not even in the same atmosphere.
Huh. Because that's a bad month. Like that's a bad market for New Jersey. Couple months. Where were you guys?
3 years.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, 3 years.
Wow.
So imagine this. Oh, perfect. So imagine this. They're setting up the podcast studios. They're showing me the mics.
Nice.
So what happened is the recorded days on market was between 87 and 89 was like
Yeah.
if you look at the stats. But what happened is we're oil and gas, and so imagine Texas. We actually have more oil than America does, if you can imagine that. And we voted in a liberal government that shuts down oil and gas. So imagine Texas and the taps getting turned off, right? What would happen to the economy? So
Yeah.
that was in 2014. So from 2014 to 2019, no economy in where we live. And people were trying to sell their house, but they were so far backwards, so far down that they were zero equity and then cashing out their life savings to pay the negative equity and the bills. So, like that 44 deals I did my first year, 38 of them were listings because nobody was buying. Like people would
Sure.
sell and then divorce is what happened. So
Yeah.
there was
They
that went
had
about. That was like 44 individual sales. It wasn't like 20 buy and sells. So, anyways, people would go on off market. So like on market, off market, on market, off market, on market, off market, on market, off market. And you would go back into history and you would see it was about 3 years it took on and off for people to sell their house. So it might say 87 or 89 days statistically, but when you go and you look in the history, it was about 3 years before people finally lowered the price enough to sell. That was the market I started in. So in uh, February 2020, I put up the 25 listings, knowing it was going to take me months to sell them. But I'm like, at least I've got this money coming at some point. And then March happens and COVID hits. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, my business just died completely.
I
And I'm
think
like,
everyone thought that. Everyone thought, right?
but imagine coming from where I was,
Yeah.
meeting my December deadline, putting out 25 listings, and then having the rug pulled from under you. And I'm like, man, like I'm doing everything I can as a person to make this work. And the world is just against me everywhere I turn, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I ended up selling all them anyways, but it took a little bit of time. And then obviously the markets took off over COVID did what they did.
Sure.
I guess I guess to answer your question, actually, no, let me rewind it. So to answer your question, the big changing moment for me was it was actually November. So November of 2019. So I did the 17 sales and then one. And then even though I did all the sales, I was so far in debt that wasn't going to help me. I was still going to be negative in all my bank accounts. And I still didn't feel better. Like inside,
Mm.
I still wasn't doing better. And I've always been a helper. That's always like just been my personality. You can go back and Google stuff that I was doing in high school. I was helping people and stuff, right? So what happened is I couldn't even help myself, so let alone could I help anybody else. So in November, I made a post and it was just like literally just the most random day, random thing. And I'm like, you know what? Like, let me just help people that felt how I felt. So I said, I'm not an expert. I'm only like 8 months in the business, but I sold 17 deals last month and I know what I did to get those deals. So if you're feeling like how I felt, where you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go, you don't know a mentorship, I'm just going to give it away for free. I'm just going to teach anybody what I know. And I go, I'm not an expert. I'm not a coach. I'm just going to give it out. And that was in November. I think it was November 19th. And four people responded to that post. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I don't have any.
What now?
I was just really throwing it out there, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so four people responded to that post, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like, okay, well, we'll start tomorrow. So that night, I sat down, I thought about it. I'm like, okay, well, what was the biggest factor that helped me get those deals? And I'm like, you know what? It was mindset. It was 100% mindset was the biggest thing. So then that ended up being day one.
Yeah.
Everybody came, and this was on a black Zoom because back then you had to pay, and if you didn't pay, it was whatever, right?
Yep.
And it cut off after 40 minutes. I didn't know it was going to cut off after 40 minutes. So everybody logged off at the same time because it cut. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're going to log back on. So I did, and everybody logged back on, and we went for like another 40 minutes. So, anyways, day one was mindset, and everybody was super jacked about it. I'm like, oh, okay, well, if you like that, I'm like, let's come back for day two, and I'll teach you some more stuff on day two. And everybody said yes. I'm like, okay. So then the second day, I'm like, or that night, I'm like, okay, well, where did my actual deals come from, right? Like, where did the actual business come from? I'm like, it was door knocking and open houses where most of it came from. I'm like, okay, so that's day two. So then I did day two is door knocking and open houses. And I wrote it that night for the next morning. And then everybody loved that. And I'm like, okay, crazy. I'm like, worked really well. Okay, well, where did the next amount of deals come from? I'm like, oh, it's definitely warm calls and cold calls. So then I did the warm calls and cold calls. And then everybody loved that. I'm like, okay. I'm like, we'll do another one tomorrow. And then so the next one was social media, right? So I had a social media day. And then everyone was jacked about that. And then so I'm like, okay, we'll come back tomorrow and I'll do another one tomorrow. And then I sat down that night to write day five and I was out of stuff. I'm like, oh shit. I go, I got nothing left. I go, but people are coming tomorrow. I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, my listing presentation I know is unique based on from what I saw out there and all the Googling and YouTubing that I did. So like, I'll just get my listing presentation as day five. And then so I did that, and then everyone's like, okay, well, what's next? I'm like, there is no next. I go, I'm out of stuff.
Oh.
Enjoy world, right?
Yeah.
Enjoy you have it. I'm like, well, did we sign up for anything or whatever? I go, there's nothing to sign up for. I go, I gave you everything I have. Like, go frolic and enjoy real estate, right? And sorry.
Fly and be free.
Yeah, yeah. And so what happened though is those people were so grateful, and the things that they said to me and the things that they told me after those 5 days was the first time that I'd felt good in years, and
Hmm.
that was the first time that I felt happiness in years. And that post that turned into those 5 days is what actually saved my life. Because even though I'd done those deals, the deal was I had to start feeling better, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
Again, that was the end of November. I was like 5 weeks away from killing myself before I made that post. But what happened is that 5 day training forced me to write out what I was doing. And as I wrote out what I was doing, I'm like, oh, you know what? I could probably do this a little better if I just did it this way. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So what happened is I was putting in the reps, but I never actually looked at what the reps looked like.
Yeah.
This is the first time I sat back and actually audited the things that I was doing
And reflected, right?
and reflected. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened is that helped me fine tune what I was doing. And then that was just a rocket ship after that.
That's
So,
amazing. Are those the four people that started working with you? Is that how you started your team?
nope,
No, not even. Okay.
not even. No,
Not even. That's
no,
amazing.
none of them are even with me at EXP. Still to this day, none of them are even here. They're all still
Wow.
scattered because
Wow.
I never used it as attraction. That was never the point.
Right.
And imagine this. So like this, I don't think I actually have this on any interviews, but so again, the deal. So 44, 103, 186. My first 3 years. I did that my eighth month in the business. So for the next sorry 18 consecutive months. So imagine this for the next year and a half straight, because that was the first time that I felt good in such a long time. I needed more of that. I put together a course that I did for free, and I did it every single day for 18 months straight. But not only did I do it every day for 18 months straight, I was a nobody. Nobody knew who I was. So I
Hmm.
used to go on like lab coat agents and all these Facebook groups, and people would ask questions. I would answer the questions in the Facebook groups. And then people were like, oh, wow, that's really smart. Oh, wow, that's really good. I'm like, yeah, I teach this on day two of my free training. And then I put the links in there. And I would spend hours a day doing that, filling up my groups. And the groups would start coming from all over the place, um, all over North America, and I wanted it to be in the morning. So I had an Eastern time zone, a Central time zone, and a Western time zone that it took me 90 minutes a day each live. So I did all of that before I started my prospecting, while still prospecting for those groups and doing the numbers that I did. And I never missed a single week. Every single week I did it. And people used to ask me, like, why don't you just record it and put it out there? And, or sell it, right? One of those two things. And I'm like, because you have no idea why I'm doing this. And like,
Hmm.
what do you mean? I'm like, because it was Monday to Friday, right? It's a
Sure,
Friday.
sure.
I go, I'm doing this for Friday. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, the only reason that I'm alive today is for that Friday, for that feeling that I get when everybody's so grateful that their business has changed and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so we had 1,500 people come through in those 18 months. And
That's
not a
amazing.
single one of them were charged, and everything was live, and not a single person was pitched. It was just, let's help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, you embody exactly what I think is missing from people's assumptions about real estate agents. I mean, I hear way too many times that people assume we're door openers. And I am so grateful for this story because it's so, so far from the truth for so many of us. But clearly, you emulate using this opportunity to
yeah,
help on so many levels, and your natural instincts really carried you along. Thank you
yeah.
for that. That is
That's
really helpful.
that's even why I started my team, right? Like
Yeah,
this team now, the basis of it
yeah.
is I think realtors we get such poor training at scale, like in large, right? Like
Yeah,
the brokerages
hard.
don't do
Yep.
a
People are
great job.
independent contractors, so hard to
Mm.
train people who aren't employees, right?
Yes, yes. And the industry has a 90% failure rate, so 9 out of 10 people fail, right?
Right.
So what happens is if we have a 90% failure rate, that means the majority of customers are not getting good service, right? And I'm like, okay, if I could do 100 or 200 deals a year myself, like that 186 was hard. Like the mentally that you're fatigued, right? So
Yeah,
like I
of
don't think I could do
course.
that every year or increase on that. I probably would have fell back to 100 deals, let's say, right? And so I was like, okay, how do we help more people help more people? And I'm
Hmm.
like, if I can train my agents properly to do the job that they should be doing out there, if my team does 500 deals, I know that's 500 good deals that people will help properly. But it's probably going to take me 80 or 90 agents to do that.
Sure.
So by helping those 500 families, I can actually help 80 realtors also live a better life and have a better income and a better family balance and all this stuff. So like that's actually 600 people that I'm helping with the team
Yeah,
instead of just 100 that I can help myself. And I actually talked about this a little while ago because I've been super blessed to be invited to these masterminds and stuff where it's like invite only master. You have to be doing a certain production and stuff, right?
sure.
And every time I'm at them, all they talk about, like the only thing they talk about is profit, margin, dollars per agent, and blah, all this shit, right? And I'm like, when when are you going to talk about the agents? When are you going to talk about their lives? And when are you going to talk about the customer experience? I'm sitting here in a room of the biggest teams on earth, right? Everyone's doing probably mine is probably the smallest at 200 million. A lot of them are 600 million, almost a billion a year in sales. And I go, nobody's talking about the customer experience or the agent experience. You're just talking about money. I go, like, you guys have it so twisted. And that's why I think my team, the buy-in is so big and how we were able to grow so fast is because it's all about them. Like it's everything is about them. Right.
Yeah, the relationships and the people and the connection.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
And real training.
yeah. Now, is that what your keynote was about? I'm curious because I didn't get to go.
Yeah.
Is that what your keynote was about?
Yeah. We spoke on teams on this one. So it really depends. Like I'm, in 2 days, I'm in Vancouver doing another keynote. I said, what do you want me to talk about? And they're like, whatever you want. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just talk about everything then. But so
Big
yeah,
story.
this
You have an
this
epic story.
thanks. Yeah. Well, but I've been blessed with super high production and really good team results. And like we're in a cloud brokerage, so the rev share. I've also got one of the biggest rev share lines in the company. So like in every vertical, I'm excelling at the highest level. So like it doesn't really matter which one you put me in. I'm going to be able to speak to it if that makes sense. But yeah, this last one that you're talking about was about teams.
Yeah.
So about teams and team growth. And yeah, it's crazy, but like I've been again super fortunate to be in rooms where I've had really good conversations. Not even rooms. I'll give you a tip. If you guys are going to seminars,
Yeah. Let
right?
them know. What do we need to know?
I'll give you the biggest tip, the absolute biggest one. It's always a con of some kind, right? So like EXP con or which brokerage you had again, you said?
Gen Blue. Wait, for us, it's Gen Blue for
Gen
co-op.
Blue.
Same idea.
Okay. So say
Mhm.
Gen Blue Con or
Yeah.
Remix Con or whatever. It's whatever
Yeah.
convention. So that's actually not the convention. We call it LobbyCon. So all of the
Mhm.
best stuff happens in the lobby. So
Yep.
it happens that you should have trained where you should attend some of the training if it's really dialed and very important to you. But if nothing is super important, you need to hang out in the lobby and have conversations with the players in the lobby. And that is where I've gotten the best info from the best people is in the lobby.
I love that. That's like getting home homespun, information, right? Because
What's the best?
it's not packaged. It's
Yeah.
just literally what's people think and what they say and what they see and what they're doing. That's awesome. Thank you for that tip. That's great. Anyone out there who's listening to this, take that to heart. I don't know where you get your energy. I am mind blown and kind of tired after your story in a great way. It's epic and amazing. And well, tell us, I mean, you've gotten all the way here. What Shawn is like the next step? What's next for Shawn Getty?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's all about like just solving problems and bottlenecks, right?
Mhm.
So we had a big problem at like 45, 48 agents. I was stuck there for a couple months. Not that I couldn't grow past it, but I didn't have the bandwidth to grow past it. And I was looking everywhere for a solution because the thing with my team is we're not a leads-based team. We're a skills training and accountability-based team. So like people don't come to me for leads. They come to me because they want to learn how to do the business properly. It's kind of like a coaching business almost
Yeah.
instead of a team,
Yeah.
but it's a team setup, the splits and stuff. So what happened is I can only handle so much, right? So 45 to 48 was kind of my bandwidth. And
Mm.
when we got over, the service to the agents started to slack. So we weren't actively recruiting into the team. And I'm like, okay, I need to solve this problem. And I was working on it for a couple months and I was trying so many different things and throwing some different stuff at the wall and nothing was sticking. And yeah, it was just one post from somebody and one conversation with somebody in a meeting, kind of like one of these. And I'm like, oh, lights on. Perfect. So yeah, those two solutions were perfect and they married each other perfectly, which is nice. And we put those to practice about 10 days ago. And I was on vacation. Yeah. We made some announcements and then I went on vacation. I came back and yeah, we did 10 interviews for the team this week, and I'm pretty sure eight are coming on. So to answer your question, what's next is the goal is $1 billion in sales in 2025. And like I mapped it out, it's pretty simple. If we have 150 agents on the team and we just average 12 deals per agent, we're doing 600,000 as our average sale here. That gives us 1,800 sales. 1,800 sales times 600,000 is 1.1 billion. Take off 10% for discrepancies or whatever, that lands us at $1 billion. At $1 billion, that should put our name into a pretty good place of our reputation and what we're doing
I would think.
around. And then I can start putting different packages together to help different people all over the place. So really just to get our name out there in a better situation based on the production. And
Yep.
once it's there, then more people will be seeing us and then we can help more people again at scale. So
Absolutely amazing. Really, you're an inspiration. An inspiration. It's great. That is so great. Well, thank you for this time. I really appreciate it. If somebody's looking to actively come to a team that sounds like it jives with you, what's the best way for them to get there? And then, of course, what's the best way for anyone who wants to buy or sell with your team?
yeah, same place. So gettygroup.ca because we're Canadian. So
Mhm.
gettygroup.ca is that'll connect you with one of our agents. I don't sell anymore, obviously, right? But yeah, gettygroup.ca, and then there's a little button there that says join the team, and then that books right into my calendar, and then that'll get you a meeting.
I love it. That is just truly amazing. And thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I want to thank you so much, Shawn, for being here. This has been wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. Great to know you. Great to see you. I can't wait to have somebody that's going to Calgary so we can do some referrals together. That
That'd
would
be
be
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah,
That would be
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, it's been another great episode of the Icons of Real Estate. podcast and real estate network. I'd really like to thank you again, Shawn Getty, my host. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. From our studio to your success, I'm Kat Timpson. Thanks for being with us.